Shum Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who rule well. Salutations to the Akim and Four Winds, preaching in truth and sincerity, risking their lives more now than ever, the hopeful elect. The elect, Shalom, to the Israelite foreigners whose phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel and have come back to the fold. Shalom to you sisters, you Akwatium, who listen and learn under your husband or your spiritual leader in silence. Shalom. And this your brother Aram Yahawada with the lesson. And it says, basically this is Psalms 49:11. Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, right? And when you deal with houses, it's plural. Well, the earth in itself is a house, but in that house you have these different continents and all these different things, right? So they'll conquer things like, like Africa and named it after Leo Sciphios Africanus, right? They'll conquer America and name it after America Vespucci. I mean, you're talking about the whole entire continent, North America, which is basically, north, like Canada is technically America, right? Because of the entire continent is supposed to be America. Then you got America, and then you got Central, and then you got South, America, right? All these things are named after their own name. I believe even Asia was an actual so-called white man, how they got the word Asia, right? I'm not quite sure, but we know that but not only the land or the houses, plural, right? Because even Australia was probably not technically Australia, but I don't know much about Australia because it's on the other side of the world. So, but you get the drift, right? That yeah, and that's part of their houses within the earth being a house in itself, and their dwelling places, right, where you live, those different continents, their dwelling places, to all generations, they call the lands after their own names. So let's see back where it says their inward thought, right? Let's go to the blue letter here. See if we can get some understanding, because this is, the Hebrew. And let's just hit the inward thought part, yeah. Under the
Strong's H 7130. Kerev.
Okay, it says mist among inner place, middle, inward place, physical sense, right? That's pretty key. As seat of thought and emotions. Hey, that's big, man. You gotta think. This is like their emotion. This is basically their whole movement, their whole, their essence behind who they are. You know what I mean? As faculty of thought and emotion. Woo. Okay, let's look up that word faculty. Okay, yeah, here we are.
Faculty.
Faculty says, ooh, inherent mental. Ooh, men, mental. Yeah, their inherent mental. Their inherent mentality is that they're just gonna rule forever, right? And they're gonna name everything after they name. They're gonna rule the world and just have it like that forever. So they name the lands or their houses after their own name, which is talking about the lands actually. You know, and I gave you an example like Africa, Leoscyphius africanus, which is a so-called Edomite. I mean, which is a self-proclaimed white man, but really Edomite. And America Vespucci, self-proclaimed white man, what they would say today, which really is an Edomite, right? Physical power says, what was that? Power. Let's see what this one.
Capability.
Their capability, because once they conquered the world by using the musket guns, because that's ultimately what actually helped them take it over. Once they created the gun, you know what I mean.
Potentiality.
The potentiality, yeah. Success, yeah, because ultimately they were successful. The abilities that may be developed and led to future success, and ultimately that's what they had. Once they had the gun, they had success in conquering the world, and that was basically their mentality, their inherent mentality. Once you have the gun, oh yeah, we're finna take this over, and it's gonna be ours. You know what I mean? So,
Propensity.
propensity. Oh, and in inclination, or natural tendence to behave in a particular way, a propensity for violence. And that's ultimately what the Edomite had did, man. He conquered this world by violence, and he has a propensity or propensity for violence. That's his inward thoughts. I have this gun. Now I don't have to get up on him, and I'm gonna shed blood, right? So this is Micah chapter 2, verse 1. Woe unto them, which means destruction, because ultimately destruction is coming to the Edomite, to them that devise iniquity and work evil, right? It's ultimately coming to someone else's land with the plan to put them in slavery, with the plans to steal their natural resources without having to pay for it. And then after not paying for it, taking this, taking that, and then making you either a slave or making you basically a debt slave, right? Because when you're paying tribute just means you're a debt slave. So they've always had debt slaves, just like they basically make now. We're all basically debt slaves, according to to the central banks, right? And that's why they try to put them central banks in every country, which that's ultimately what they're doing now. Is going to be a central bank, but going into the digital currency. So that's the thing you got to be careful of that digital currency, because that's where you can't get forgiveness for. It says, yeah, were evil upon their beds with their rulership, right? They were conquering this land, conquering that land, naming it after their name. So now they're in their rulership, which means bed goes into rest, right? Which is their kingdom, their heaven, because this is their heaven. When the morning is light, right? Because they can see. That's why they call it the Illuminati, because they can see. They know what's going on. While a lot of you Israelites are in the dark, and then you're in denial when someone bring you to the light to show you, look, that's the light. This is what they're doing, really. You want to be, you want to stay blind to the fact. They practice, right? Because what is it, that thing? What's going on in Sri Lanka? Sri Lanka, I think it's called. That's a test. That's a practice run. The CV-19, the way they try to, way they did the thing and did the whole globe, that was a practice run to what they're gonna do soon, because they have 190 countries that's gonna go along with the WHO, with the World Health Organization, on the World Health Organization locking down the entire globe in the name of health, right? Right? Because they've used God already. That's why Apostle Hart says that IUIC or any other camp that try to say is that the image of Serapis Christus or Cesare Borgia is the mark of the beast, is far off, because they've used that to help conquer the world at one point in time, but now that's not a factor, especially when you have so many people that are atheists. So that's not going to work. The thing that's going to work is a national, or not even national, I guess you would say global health crisis, right? So, and they practice that and practice it because it is in their power, right? One of the things with faculty was what? Power. So that's their mentality. It's in my power, and I'm gonna use violence, right? The propensity. I'm gonna use my violence in that thing, because it's within my power to do so, and that's what they're gonna do. It is in the power of their hand, right? Because they've been conquering these land, naming the lands after their own name, and they covet fields and take them by violence. Wait, come on. And houses, the houses, that these different lands that they're ruling, these houses, and take them away, right, against the natural habitat or the natural people who live there, like a place like America. You know what I mean? That's just for an example, but you still got Australia. You still had a place like Hong Kong. They gave it back to the China, but they only did that because China ended up having a lot of power, and they had basically no choice but to finally give Hong Kong back to China, right? So, because if they could have fought for it and they had any inkling of a chance that they could have won, they would have fought, because they have they have a propensity for what? For violence. But they're not stupid either. They know when they can win a fight and when they can't win a fight. You know what I mean? So that's their thing. and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, right, in his land, in his was it continent or country or land or however you want to take it. You know what I mean? Because that's what they did. Australia is a continent and a land, and their tribes and wherever they were at. You know what I mean? Just like so-called America. It's a continent, it's a land. Down to the tribes and the way they behave, but they oppress the man and their heritage. So now they don't move the way they used to move. They're not being nomadic and following the buffalo like they were, and eating off the land and eating healthy. Now everybody got diabetes and all sorts of stuff. So they completely oppress these men, a man and his house, and the land. And then you got to think the land's taken on a different landscape in itself. The way they cut down the trees and put these highways and pathways and all these other different things now, and even a man in his heritage, right? Now a lot of the children don't speak their initial language. They speak the language of their oppressor mostly, right? And they don't understand the things of old and how their ancestors got down, right? Their heritage, right? Because a heritage is more than just land, unlike, the famous demon vocab wants to, just put it as just land or heritage. If you go back technically, well, that's what the so-called scientists or whatever people come up with these words and try to come up with the definition. And sometimes you can get a good understanding of the definition, but there's certain things that go beyond a regular definition. Okay, yeah, it can mean land, but then the land, when you deal with people, the land means nothing without the people being there. It can't be a heritage of a land without the people, because often we use Chinese, but I mean you could use anybody technically. You know what I mean? However, the ancient, well, actually, you look, we're the people, because of the way that things got conquered and the way things have transformed. We are the original Vikings. We know they exist because the Lord said there's no end of the people. But we're those people practicing the customs of Vikings. You don't have that, right? But we often use, like I said, China, because the reason why we use China is because we know that those ancient, things going back. They have those 10 dynasties, and you got, especially when you go into the royal part of China, the people who royal, they know exactly who they from and how many generations that go back, and they know exactly what their ancestors did. You know what I mean? And how they got down. You know what I mean? So that's why we use that. Because if you take and you just say the land is okay, well, the land, that's the land, that's the heritage. Okay, we'll move them from that land and then put another people there who's totally different, have totally different customs, everything. And you go 150 years. Probably you don't even got to go that long. You just go some time. But let's say 100 years, short, like 100 years. You would not remember what the people before that had did in that land and their customs and things like that. That's just a piece of land. It's the people within that land that makes it what it is. That, like, when you go to Jerusalem, when you go see the, because people do tours now, so-called, right? It's basically like a tourist destination type thing. So when you do that, and and the people there are are phony. They're there to play a role. But when you go there, you're expecting to get the experience of the Bible in a sense, right? Without the people who's there pretending to be, it would just look like a bunch of rubble. There's no one there to explain, oh, well, this is such dynasty, such these people, whoop, 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 and this is when God did so and so, and this is when so and so happened over here. You know what I'm saying it means nothing. It's just land. Like they said the pillar, Lot's wife, the pillar of salt, and it still looks like a lady. They said even to this day. But without the Bible story, or without the people who's there to take a tour, so you can get the what do you call it? So you can get the feel of it. You can get the understanding of it. I mean, it means nothing. You just be somebody walking by like, damn, that kind of looks like a lady, but oh well, and you just keep on going because it. I mean, but yeah, let me keep going. Yeah, Kun. So yeah, we here, and I was driving. I was working, and I seen this Palisades. So not only do he name places after his own name, he also names them names by way he have destroyed you Israelites, right? By means of conquering, right? And this is the Palisades. So back in 70 AD, they used the Palisades, which is a piece of wood that's sharpened at the point, and they dug it down into the ground and left the other piece of wood out of the ground long enough to build like a wall, so you couldn't run anywhere. You couldn't just, it wasn't short, it was really tall, so you couldn't jump over it. But it's what is called a palisade. And also they have it basically with this new way, by means of getting the MOTB, is also a palisade, right? So Wikipedia, Siege of Jerusalem, 70 AD or 70 EC, however they come up with it, but it's, I know it as AD. The Siege of Jerusalem, 70 AD or EC, was the decisive event of the first Jew-Roman War, 66 through 73 AD or EC, in which the Roman army led by future Emperor Titus besieged Jerusalem, the center of Jew resistance in the Roman province, right? So yeah, these dudes, it was just a providence. And being that you have the true power, living power, because everybody else is worshiping idols, here it is, you're telling Yahushua you've never been a slave, and that you got to pay taxes. That's why the Lord said, who inscription is on this coin? You render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, but unto Yahweh what is Yahweh's. Why? Because you're basically debt slaves under this thing, under this providence. When you are right, you're supposed to be children of Abraham. and you're supposed to be free, but you're constantly, like the Lord said, you constantly kill the prophets. You constantly go against what Yahweh Shai has to say. But you're just a providence of Judea, following a brutal 5-month siege. The Romans destroyed the city, and the second Jew temple was destroyed. And I'm saying Jew because there's no such thing as Jewish. Yeah, those are ones that wish they were actually the real Jews, man. But it's gonna come out in these last days, man, which it already is. But I mean, the Lord's gonna enlighten it. Part of the first Jew-Roman war, right? And they laid out a wall, right? And they basically entrapped the men, and they basically came in to destroy them, right? And they helped use the what is it called, palisades, to entrap them and starve them out, right? To solve the problem of the new supplies. Pretty much what they're doing right now, they're finna cause the supplies to not come into the country, which they say the devil don't have new tricks, because he uses the things that's always worked, so he don't have to have new tricks. So he's doing what he's always did, right? So the new supplies getting into the city, right? So this is when they built the wall against Jerusalem, which is what they're pretty much doing now. The city, Titus built a siege wall that leaped around the valley outside of the unbreached third wall, Salakia, through the Roman held sections, right? So they built the wall, and how they built the wall is through what you call a palisade, right? And it just says, how long did it take for them to build the wall? Oh, that's something different. Okay. It says, the Roman siege of Jerusalem, 1 million lives lost in 8 months. So that's how you know them Edomites, man, of combat, right? Definitely Edomites, man. 1 million lives lost in 8 months. And that's what they're going to do again. That's what they're getting ready to do again, but it's going to be more than 1 million. Well, we're talking about the billions, right? So this is Revelation chapter 13, verse 17, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name, right? So Germaner Major, Germaner Minor, Spain, Portugal, France, England or London, England, however you want to go. And things like that. Basically, those 7 starting with the NATO. The EU, starting with the EU, and then gradually going into NATO, which NATO ended up having America a part of NATO, and NATO being what the military might, which because really Britain still rules over America, but America's the face of all this thing. That's why America is going to get the major missiles shot upon America. Not to mention it is the mystery Babylon, right? Because it's the woman that's on the scarlet cover beast, and the beast happens to be the European, or what they call the Roman treaty, right? Which goes into the EU, basically the European, the Roman treaty goes into the EU, right? The European Union, right? Slovakia, right? Going into their finances, right? And that the original beast goes back to Rome, though, right? Because that's the reason why they did the thing as like a house, the patricians and the Flavians, and then you got America, which is the Republican and the Democrat, and I believe you got it pretty much similar, still same thing in Britain, which America stems off from that, right? So they basically run the thing basically the same way they did in Rome. So this is basically Rome all over, So that's that beast, right? Which ultimately that beast is going to give power to the beast through the World Health Organization, right? And that's going to be that beast, right? So let's so right here, Revelations chapter 13, verse 17. We're going to go ahead and mark Salakia. Salakia, yeah, there we go. I'm going to where'd it go? Oh yeah, Mark, which is
Strong's G 5480. Charagma.
Charagma, which is a stamp or imprinted mark, right? Because it has to be inserted, basically, inserted, right? And of the mark stamped upon the forehead or the hand as a badge of the followers of the anti-Hamashiach. But basically the system in itself is what they're doing. Their monetary system and their health system is anti-Hamashiach or anti-Israel, should we say, right? And anti the kingdom and the throne of David. That's why when you go into a Christian church, they never speak about the throne of David. And I never thought about that till Elder Yashawamba always says that. What happened to the throne of David? What happened to the throne of David that the Lord said was going to rule forever? Because the people over there in Israel who's saying that they're the people and they're in that land, no one's talking about the throne of David. That's very significant, and according to prophecy, in order for you to even be in that land, that's significant. It doesn't begin to make sense. But it says the mark branded upon a horse. Now I think that's pretty interesting, right? This is horse branded. Brands, right, are commonly used means to identify individual horses as an aid in farm management, as a thief deterrent, right? So this is commonly used. See, they use a hot iron and basically put it on the skin, which actually hurts. Even though horses got pretty thick skin, you know, they'll put the basically the brand of their, you know, their ranch or whatever, or their family name or whatever, you know, right? I thought that was pretty interesting because, you know, they used to be seared with a hot iron, you know, and that's how the horses were branded. But we're in this so-called modern technology type situation, so a microchip ID, and look what it has right there, horses. So what's getting this modern ID, right? This microchip ID, horses, right, and other animals too, right? But I'm very interested in the point that it said branded as horses, and here is horses who's getting a modern, updated branding, basically, in a sense, right? And it says anywhere between $38.75 up to $770, right? For this system that you can use microchipping to find your horse or whatever, right? So it's branded. Wikipedia: slave owners use extreme punishments to stop flight or escape. They would often brand the slaves' palms, shoulders, buttocks, or chests with a branding iron. Branding was sometimes used to mark recaptured runaway slaves to help the local easily identify the runaway. Kind of like a horse, right? But now we're going into the modern way to brand, right? Yeah, see, right here. Marks of oppression identified of African American, right? Branding them. So it will burn your hand, your chest, your buttocks, all sorts of things. Right? To let them know you belong to old Mr. Johnson down the way, right? See? Burning them. Right? They don't have as much as they used to. They used to have a lot. That's that truth coming out. So now they don't really want to have it in there like how they used to have it. Yeah, right there. Burn like you would do a horse, right? So if they did that to the horses then, and now they're going into the modern way of microchip identification for horses. Now, right here, it says thousands of suites are inserting microchips. Thousands of Swedes are inserting microchips under their skin. Same way that they're doing it to the horses. Right? Identifying, right? Branding them one way, at one point in time. But as technology is advancing, right, so-called, you have them doing it another way, right? And I was surprised. Okay, first Jake. And then, of course, it was a woman, a Jake woman. Eve, because I was looking like, dang, all these Edomites. And no Jake, so I was like, damn, that's good. But there you go. There's one Jake. We'll get back right here for the charagma. Right? And let's go into the root of charagma, which is basically this is what I was trying to get to, because it's by the way the delivering system of that mark.
Strong's G 5482. Charax,
yeah. A pale or stake, right? Or a palisade, right? So they named their streets out of that's basically what the Roman army did and built palisades to block in Israel from any goods to come in. And then because no goods were coming in and out, basically they starved. They started killing and eating each other, whatever the heck they were doing. You start bugging out after a while, which that's the same thing they're gonna do to America real soon, right? Palisades, a rampart, right? Pale between with the earth, right? And that's basically what they did. It's pale between the earth, right? And that's what they did back in those days. But now, you as a human also is earth, right? The Lord made you from the dust of the ground. You're earth, right? And that sharp part Yeah, so the a palisade, sometimes called a stake wall or a paling, is typically a fence or defensive wall made from iron or wooden stakes, tree trunks, right? It's basically what they did. Used as a defensive structure or enclosure, and that's ultimately what they did. They enclosed Israel in and starved them out, which they're going to do that again, but this time the palisade is going to go into you, because basically it's pretty much like the white picket fence, right? You ever thought of the white picket fence is a palisade, right? So they have that that give you that ideology of living the good life in America, and part of that is what? The white picket fence. The white picket fence, I never even thought of that until just right now, that the white picket fence is basically a palisade, right? So it says, how did the white picket fence become a symbol of the suburbs, right? It says, beginning in the late 1940s, the white picket fence became synonymous with the American dream, right? Became synonymous with the American dream. And so ultimately, you as Israelites were always trying to get that that American dream, and it's going to be synonymous with the American dream again, via through you see how it has the points, and so the charagma or the karax is a thing that is at a point, right? And we know that so yeah, there you go, by the way of the karax, which is at a point, like a palisade. And if it's actually, this thing right here is actually white, like the white picket fence, right? And your body, since you're made of the dust of the ground, right, is the ground, right? So this palisade, or karax, should we say, right, is going to go into you by having the mark, and this the delivering system to the mark.
Strong's G 5482, Charax.
Yeah,
Charax.
The palisade, but the delivering system by way of putting a stake into the ground, or the stake into, you know what I mean? Which, that's like another way of saying you put your claim on something, you put a stake into it. And that's what it was called, a stake wall, right? Or this is going to be a stake or a thing with a sharp point, with basically like a needle, or like a way to put the mark within you, right? And on that mark, you go deeper.
Strong's G 1125, Grapho.
Grapho is basically things that's written. So you know that thing, the digital thing has written information within that to allow them to use it. Just like before they branded the horse with just regular hot iron brand, just like they branded the slaves with a regular hot iron brand, and you're technically still slaves now. So now they have to transfer that thing into, just like what they're doing to all the other animals, and they're putting, because they do call you goyim, right? Which is cattle, right? So you're gonna partake in that thing going from the mark charagma to the karax to the grapho, which having the information, which knowing your name, your address, who you are, et cetera, your arrest history, your medical history, your financial history, whatever, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So those are the things. Why? Because it's things that's written with reference to form or of a letter or whatever. It's got, has basically has the information. Right? Right. Let's see. To commit to writing things not to be forgotten. All right. Written down records. All right, there you go. It'll have all your records. That's a good way to say it. Your records. Because you got to think, what are they doing right now? Because like this thing says paper and all these other things, but everything is talking about what paperless, right? Everything is going digital. So that's just another thing of what I've seen, how they're showing. It's not just they're writing their name upon the countries, the this and that. They got streets, and not only are they naming the streets after their own name, they're naming the streets after ways they have destroyed you Israelites, right? Like in Pride, right? Because there's another street, right? And I was, like I said, I was driving, working, and I'm tripping out, Palisades, the Apostle Hart explained how they did that and set up the Palisades to build a wall to trap us into Jerusalem, and and kill a lot of Israelites there, starve them out, kill them, put them into slavery, right? Because it's Babylon and Timbuktu. It tells you 1 million Jews fled into Africa, but not just Africa, because the Lord Himself prophesied that this was going to come, and He said to flee into the mountains. So that's not just Africa. That was the mountains in Asia, the mountains in Asia Minor, Asia Major, Asia Minor, all these different places, right? You go 4 different directions: north, east, south, west, right? North, east, south, and west, right? So that's where they fled. They fled into the mountains. He said, do not return into Jerusalem, right? So it says, so basically I seen this conquistador, right? Conquistador is what? Destroy what? The northern kingdom, right? And they have no problems with basically blatantly putting these things right in front of your face, right? Right. Matter of fact, there's another one because I did a lesson on it. Yeah. So again, I was driving, and seen this. I did a lesson on this basin road, bloody basin, but basin is meaning like a bottom, the base, right? Basin. We'll come to find out when you read this, the reason why this street is named Bloody Basin is because they basically pushed Gad off a cliff but then they give a BS story about how Gad did some things, killed 3 white people, and then it goes into the military wanted to get blood from the natives, and then it says something about the natives were celebrating, and so they were able to see them celebrating, and went in there and killed them while they were celebrating. And it said it surprised them, and some jumped off the cliff, and the other ones that didn't got killed, and the ones that surrendered were killed. So it sounded like you were there to hurt them. And the BS story about the 3 guys, that the thing doesn't make sense. But at the end of the day, they're gonna get their just due, because maybe these men were walking through their land, which most likely you were, just like you did. You're trespassing. You know what I mean? And you're supposed to have every right to do whatever you need to do for someone who's trespassing. You know, but the story don't add up as far as them saying that. I think they were looking for them anyway, and they just went and slaughtered men, women, and children, basically like Esau always does. And after they slaughter your men, women, and children, they'll name a street after it, and it's just, oh, it's no big deal. Oh, it's many different stories. It's, some people say it's this, some people say it's that. When you know that's like Esau's alluding to be, you know, well, he is a vagabond, right? His whole thing is to elude justice, but it's coming to the point he's not going to be able to elude justice for much longer, and have the pride and basically displaying how he killed you, and naming the continents and the places and the cities after his own name. So Kahaloyim Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai Ba'Hashem Rakal Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who were well. Salutations to the Akim in the 4 winds, preaching in truth and sincerity, risking their lives more now than ever. The hopeful elect, the elect. Shalom to the Israelite foreigners who phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel and have come back to the fold. Shalom to your sisters, you Akwaf, who listen and learn under your husband or your spiritual leader, and in silence. Shalom, and death to America.